At the heart of Nancy Kline's Time to Think framework lies one powerful idea that the quality of everything we do depends on the quality of the thinking we do first. And the quality of that thinking depends on the conditions we create for one another to think well. Over many years of observation and practice, Nancy identified 10 key behaviors or components that consistently create the best possible conditions for independent, fresh, and courageous thinking. Together, these 10 components form what we call a thinking environment. Each component plays a unique role, from the way we give attention, to how we handle difference, to how we ignite the human mind with appreciation and challenge. When they come together, they form a kind of ecosystem, one that nurtures clarity, insight, and transformation in any conversation, meeting, or team. In this presentation, we'll explore each of these 10 components in turn, understanding what they mean, why they matter, and how we can begin to practice them in our own environments to help others truly think for themselves.
Component 1. Attention. In the Time to Think framework, attention is not just the first component, it is the foundation that holds the entire thinking environment together. Most of us think we know how to listen, but true attention goes far beyond simply staying quiet while someone else speaks. It is about offering your mind as a calm, spacious place for another person's thinking to unfold. When you give someone your undivided attention, you communicate something profoundly human, that their mind matters, that their thoughts are worth hearing, and that they are safe to explore what they really think. In most workplaces, attention is fractured. We listen while checking our phones, planning our next response, or glancing at the clock. This divided attention sends a message that we value efficiency over presence, that speed matters more than understanding. But in a thinking environment, attention becomes catalytic. It doesn't just support thinking, it creates it. When people are deeply listened to, they often find themselves saying things they didn't know they knew. The discipline of attention requires restraint, resisting the urge to interrupt, advise, or redirect the focus toward yourself. It demands stillness, eye contact, and genuine curiosity. This kind of listening is not passive. It is an act of respect and leadership. It builds psychological safety and trust, turning ordinary conversations into moments of insight. Nancy Kline says, "The quality of your attention determines the quality of other people's thinking." When we master attention, we create the conditions for independent thinking, creativity, and connection to flourish.
Component 2. Equality. Equality is the second cornerstone of the thinking environment, and it transforms the way people relate to one another in conversation. In most workplaces, hierarchy silently dictates who gets to think out loud, for how long, and with what degree of freedom. Some voices dominate, while others retreat. But in a true thinking environment, equality is not about seniority or status, it's about equal turns, equal respect, and equal time to think. Equality begins with the assumption that every mind has something valuable to contribute. It does not mean that everyone is equally expert in every topic, but it does mean that everyone is equally capable of generating insight when given the space to think. When people are granted the same level of attention and opportunity to express their thoughts, they begin to think more clearly and courageously. The group's collective intelligence expands because more minds are active and engaged. This principle also requires discipline from the listener. It means waiting your turn, allowing silence, and protecting airtime for those who are usually overlooked. It means ensuring that no one voice, especially your own, takes up disproportionate space. When everyone knows they will have an equal chance to speak, competition fades and true collaboration emerges. Nancy Kline writes that, in a thinking environment, everyone is a thinker among thinkers. This shifts meetings from performance arenas into spaces of genuine exploration. People stop speaking to impress and start speaking to discover. Equality builds confidence, creativity, and a shared sense of responsibility for the quality of the group's thinking. Ultimately, equality is not just a behavioral norm, it's a cultural signal. It tells people, your thinking is valued, your voice belongs here.
Component 3. Ease. Ease is one of the most countercultural components of the thinking environment. It challenges the deeply ingrained belief that pressure, urgency, and tension drive performance. In most organizations, people wear busyness like a badge of honor. Meetings run back to back, decisions are made on the run, and thinking time is squeezed out. Yet Nancy Kline reminds us that the human mind thinks best in the presence of ease. Ease is not laziness or complacency, it's the absence of rush. It's the psychological signal that says there is time here for you to think well. When people sense that time is scarce or that they're being hurried, their thinking tightens. They default to routine ideas and safe conclusions. But when leaders create a tone of calm and unhurried presence, thinking expands. Ideas become bolder, more nuanced, more imaginative. To cultivate ease, leaders must model it. They can pause before speaking, slow their pace of speech, and resist filling silence. They can structure meetings with breathing space, starting on time, finishing early, and leaving moments for reflection. Ease also means designing the physical environment to reduce stress. Natural light, comfortable seating, even a touch of beauty all reinforce a sense of unhurried focus. Ease is an act of generosity. It tells people, you do not need to rush your mind to earn our attention. When we bring ease into our conversations, we allow the brain to function as it's meant to, creatively, coherently, and without fear. In a world addicted to speed, ease is not a luxury, it's a competitive advantage.
Component 4. Appreciation. Appreciation is the emotional heart of the thinking environment. It shifts the atmosphere from critical to creative, from fear to trust. In most organizational settings, people are accustomed to feedback that focuses on gaps, weaknesses, and what still needs fixing. While constructive feedback has its place, Nancy Kline discovered that the mind thinks best when it feels appreciated. Appreciation is not flattery or sugarcoating. It is a disciplined practice of noticing and naming what is good, useful, or courageous in another person's contribution. When people feel genuinely appreciated, they relax, and their thinking opens up. Their creativity, courage, and clarity expand because their psychological defenses lower. Appreciation tells the brain, you are safe here. You can think freely. In meetings, appreciation can rebalance the energy of discussion. For example, Nancy Kline suggests a 5-to-1 ratio, 5 appreciative comments for every critical one. This ratio is not about politeness, it's about cognitive performance. When the emotional tone is appreciative, people think faster, connect ideas more easily, and challenge one another without hostility. Leaders who practice appreciation create a culture of confidence. They look for what is right before they search for what is wrong. They express gratitude publicly and specifically. Appreciation also builds relational trust, the invisible fabric that allows honesty to thrive. Over time, people stop protecting their egos and start protecting the quality of collective thinking instead. Appreciation may seem simple, but it is transformational. It changes the emotional chemistry of a conversation and opens the door to wisdom, innovation, and human connection. Component 5. Encouragement. Encouragement is the thinking environment's engine of courage. It is what helps people break free from internal competition and self-doubt, allowing genuine originality to surface. In most organizations, comparison is constant. People measure their success against others, filter their words to appear competent, and hesitate to share untested ideas. But Nancy Kline reminds us that people think best when they know they will not be interrupted or ridiculed for thinking boldly. Encouragement means replacing competition with connection. It's the deliberate practice of supporting others to go to the edge of their thinking, to explore the uncertain, the new, the daring. It doesn't mean removing challenge. It means creating the safety to face it. The listener's role is to provide steady, positive attention that says, "I'm with you as you think this through." When leaders encourage rather than critique, they create an atmosphere where risk-taking becomes safe. People begin to challenge assumptions, including their own, because they know their ideas won't be dismissed before being explored. This shift turns meetings into thinking laboratories, not judgment arenas. Encouragement also changes internal dialogue. When we are encouraged externally, we start to internalize that tone, becoming kinder to our own thinking. This inner permission expands creativity and confidence both individually and collectively. Ultimately, encouragement is not about making people feel comfortable. It's about helping them feel capable. It builds the courage to think independently, to speak truth, and to pursue ideas that matter. In a thinking environment, encouragement is the air that lets thinking breathe. Component 6. Feelings. In most organizational cultures, feelings are treated as distractions, something to be managed, hidden, or left at the door. Yet Nancy Kline's research in Time to Think shows that unexpressed feelings block clear thinking. When emotion is suppressed, it doesn't disappear. It sits just beneath the surface, clouding judgment, distorting perception, and slowing cognitive flow. The feelings component of the thinking environment recognizes that emotion and thought are not enemies, they are partners. When someone is given the safety to express what they truly feel, whether that's frustration, grief, fear, or joy, their mind clears. The emotional charge dissipates, and new thinking can emerge. In other words, allowing feelings releases thinking. For leaders, this means creating space where emotional honesty is not seen as weakness, but as part of authentic leadership and problem solving. If a team member is anxious, defensive, or demotivated, inviting them to articulate what they're feeling often unlocks the underlying insight that's been hidden beneath emotion. Once it's expressed and acknowledged, the individual can move from reaction to reflection. This component also invites self-awareness. Leaders must learn to notice their own emotional states, irritation, fear, impatience, and pause before reacting. By naming and acknowledging what's present, they model emotional intelligence and self-regulation, which encourages others to do the same. In a thinking environment, feelings are not interruptions to thinking, they are the pathway back to thinking. When feelings are expressed, the mind quiets, attention deepens, and truth surfaces. Thought becomes cleaner, clearer, and more human.
Component 7. Information. Information is the fuel of good thinking, but only when it is accurate, complete, and honestly shared. In most organizations, people struggle to think well not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack the right information or are operating under distortion, assumption, or omission. Nancy Kline emphasizes that the human mind cannot think clearly in the presence of untruth. In a thinking environment, information means more than data. It means truth-telling. It involves seeking out facts, surfacing what's missing, and addressing denial. When information is withheld, thinking becomes constrained. When it is incomplete, decisions become flawed. And when it is distorted, whether by bias, spin, or fear, it pollutes the entire process of thought. Leaders have a particular responsibility here. They must ensure transparency wherever possible, clarify uncertainty, and correct misinformation quickly.
When a culture values truth over convenience, people's minds relax. They no longer waste energy navigating politics or guessing hidden agendas. That freedom allows their thinking to focus on insight and solutions rather than survival. Information also requires courage. Sometimes the most important information is the one that challenges existing beliefs or exposes uncomfortable realities. Creating a thinking environment means welcoming that discomfort, seeing truth as an ally, not a threat. Ultimately, information is what anchors a thinking environment in reality. Without it, thinking drifts into speculation. With it, the mind stands on solid ground, able to reason, create, and act with confidence.
Component 8. Diversity. Diversity is the lifeblood of the thinking environment. It ensures that thinking does not collapse into sameness or stagnate inside the limits of one perspective. Nancy Kline reminds us that the greater the diversity of the thinkers, the richer the thinking becomes. In most organizations, however, diversity is often approached as a compliance exercise rather than a thinking advantage. But in a true thinking environment, diversity is not a box to tick. It is a source of intellectual oxygen. Diversity expands the field of thought. When people of different backgrounds, disciplines, cultures, and identities are given equal space to think, the group accesses a wider range of experiences, metaphors, and insights. Problems are seen from multiple angles, and blind spots are revealed. Homogeneity may feel comfortable, but it breeds repetition. Diversity may feel challenging, but it breeds originality. For diversity to truly function as a component of a thinking environment, it must be paired with the earlier principles, particularly equality and attention. Representation alone is not enough. Inclusion means everyone's thinking is genuinely heard and valued. When people sense that their difference is welcomed, not merely tolerated, their confidence grows, and so does the collective intelligence of the group. Leaders play a crucial role here. They must actively seek out different voices and perspectives, especially those that are underrepresented or unheard. They must also be willing to feel the discomfort that diversity sometimes brings, because discomfort is often the sign that learning is happening. Diversity, at its core, is a commitment to truth. It challenges groupthink, expands awareness, and strengthens the organization's capacity to innovate and adapt. In a world of complex challenges, no single perspective is enough. Diversity ensures that thinking remains alive, expansive, and whole.
Component 9. Incisive questions. Incisive questions are the defining tool of the thinking environment. The key to freeing the mind from unexamined assumptions that limit clarity, confidence, and creativity. Nancy Kline discovered that most thinking is not limited by lack of intelligence, but by untrue assumptions that quietly sit beneath the surface. When those assumptions are named and replaced with liberating truths, fresh insight immediately becomes possible. An incisive question does precisely that. It first identifies the untrue assumption, the internal gatekeeper that's holding the thinker back, and then replaces it with a question built on a liberating truth. For example, if someone assumes, "I'm not experienced enough to lead this project," the incisive question might be, "If you knew that your perspective and experience are exactly what this project needs, what ideas would you have?" The shift is immediate. Fear gives way to curiosity, and new thinking flows. These questions are not random. They are carefully constructed to dissolve the block in someone's thinking. They are grounded in respect and curiosity, never manipulation. An incisive question is not about getting the right answer. It's about opening a previously closed door in the mind. Leaders who master this discipline become catalysts for breakthrough thinking in others. They listen deeply for the assumption behind what's being said and gently question it, allowing others to reconnect with their own inner wisdom.
When used consistently, incisive questions transform meetings into spaces of discovery, not debate. At its heart, this component reminds us that the mind is self-correcting when given freedom. The right question at the right moment releases potential that logic alone could never reach.
Component 10 is place. Place is the physical embodiment of respect in a thinking environment. It says without words, you matter. Your thinking matters. The spaces we occupy either invite thinking or inhibit it. Nancy Kline teaches that everything around us, from the layout of a room to the tone of its atmosphere, tells people how much we value their mind. In most workplaces, space is designed for efficiency, not reflection. Harsh lighting, cramped meeting rooms, cluttered desks, and constant noise all signal urgency, not ease. Yet thinking requires calm, beauty, and care. When the environment is thoughtfully arranged, when it feels intentional and respectful, people unconsciously relax and their minds open. Creating such a space doesn't require luxury, it requires attention. A vase of flowers, a clear table, natural light, or a quiet corner can communicate dignity and belonging. The goal is to design environments that mirror the quality of thought we want to evoke: calm, clear, and connected. Place also includes the emotional and symbolic environment. It's not just where we meet, but how we meet. If people feel dismissed or unsafe, the most beautiful room will still inhibit thought. But if the tone of the space is caring, equal, and free from interruption, it becomes a sanctuary for thinking. For leaders, place is a daily act of leadership design. Every space, a boardroom, a Zoom call, a corridor chat, can either suppress or elevate thinking. When we take care with place, we send a powerful message: you are valued, and what you think is worth hearing. The 10 components of a thinking environment are not abstract ideals. They're practices you can use every day. These short vignettes show one practical tactic for each component, something you can bring into meetings immediately. 1. Attention. Try the 3-minute rule. Pick one person and listen for 3 uninterrupted minutes. Don't nod, comment, or take over. Just listen. Notice how their thinking expands when you stay silent. 2. Equality. Use equal airtime rounds. Everyone speaks once before anyone speaks twice. Even 90 seconds each can transform a meeting from competition to contribution. 3. Ease. Introduce the 90-second pause. Before making a big decision, pause in silence for a minute and a half. The first 30 seconds feel awkward. The next 60 seconds reveal insight. 4. Appreciation. Practice the 5-to-1 habit. Begin each meeting with a round of genuine appreciation, one positive acknowledgement per person. It builds safety and strengthens confidence to think boldly. 5. Encouragement. Replace critique with curiosity. When someone shares an idea, ask, "What strengthens this?" before, "What could go wrong?" It shifts energy from fear to creativity. 6. Feelings. When emotions arise, don't analyze, acknowledge. A simple statement like, "It sounds like this is frustrating," allows emotion to move through naturally without derailing the session. 7. Information. Choose truth before convenience. Share the facts, even if they're uncomfortable. Nancy Kline says information that's withheld distorts thinking. Truth sets it free. 8. Diversity. In every discussion, invite one fresh voice. Ask someone who hasn't spoken or who usually sees things differently. Diversity is not just demographic, it's cognitive. 9. Incisive questions. Use them to challenge limiting assumptions. For example, if you knew your judgment was trusted, what would you do? It frees the thinker from doubt and opens possibility. 10. Place.
Design for calm. Natural light, uncluttered surfaces, and comfortable chairs signal care and respect. In the thinking environment, place speaks silently, telling people you matter here. Small practices like these, repeated daily, make the thinking environment visible in the culture, one conversation at a time. So this brings us to the end of this presentation on the 10 components of time to think. We hope to see you on the next one.